Our next guest is not just an Ohio State legend. He's also the Ohio Lieutenant Governor, and today he and his department announced the launch of the Team Tressel Fitness Challenge. Now, it's not for JP and I. It's in grades 4 through 8 across Ohio, and it will officially begin for students who opt in on September 8th. So to talk more about the Team Tressel Fitness Challenge, to talk about Ohio State, Texas, and so much more, on the Fan Hotline is Ohio State coach, national championship winning coach, the great Jim Trestle. Coach, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks so much. Good to be back with you, and we've had a great day rolling out this fitness challenge. Well,
it is. It's great to see that program kind of get launched, and we can obviously talk about it. But obviously, football returns over the weekend. You know, to you, when we get to this time of year, I know you haven't been a head coach in college football for over a decade, but do you still get that feeling, that excitement of a new season and what that means?
Oh, absolutely. I was just over at practice 10 days ago at Ohio State and watching those kids fly around and smell the grass and get the feeling. And you know, they were at that point in preseason where they're kind of a little bit tired of banging into each other, and they're starting to anticipate this Texas game, and then watching Iowa State and Kansas State this weekend. It's time to go.
It is time to go. So you saw them in practice. What was the vibe with Julian saying? What'd you like?
You know what? He's a smooth kid, very businesslike. You know, things are at a great pace. You know, it's a new team. And I think Texas is a little bit of a new team. Both will be very talented. Both will have, you know, young quarterbacks that, you know, will get better and better all the time. But Julian, you know, he can flick it, and he's got number 4 out there, and they're going to be a good football team.
Yeah, I think that's going to make it a little bit easier to be the Ohio State quarterback having Jeremiah Smith back one more time.
Yeah.
So specific, you mentioned that they're going to be a new team, and they did. I mean, they graduated a lot of guys to the NFL. They graduated a lot of guys in general because of, you know, the COVID year and all the extra eligibility. How does, you know, what's the key for Ryan Day to take that success you had last year and with a new team still try and continue some of that momentum?
You know, I think there were a lot of things they confronted last year. You know, you're going into the first time of a playoff, and so you really had to be careful with your pace in terms of anticipating you might play a very long season, and I thought Ryan did a masterful job. You know, we went into the playoffs very healthy, which, you know, if you're healthy and you have a chance, you never know what can happen, and, you know, we won it all. And I think the other thing that he's done a really nice job is reality tells you that your roster is going to turn over more nowadays than it has in the past. Normally, we would have maybe 30% of our roster turnover between seniors and, you know, walk-ons maybe dropping off or whatever, and new people coming in. But now, you know, it's probably closer to 40%, maybe more. And culture is everything. The team feeling is everything, and you have to do it a little bit more quickly. And I thought that Ryan did a great job with, you know, bringing in Will Howard and Judkins and, you know, some folks and you know, some freshmen coming in like Jeremiah, and he did a great job of blending that team to being a real team, and that's why they could handle the adversity. Because, you know, adversity is going to happen in a long season like that. It just does. They play a great schedule, and so, you know, this will be a challenge again. You know, he turns over a lot of folks, 12 or 14 to the NFL. Texas is very similar. They're going to have a new roster. And so whoever does a better job of building their culture more quickly will have a chance. But the thing we all have to remember is this is game 1, you know, hopefully out of 16 or 17, right? And so you got to keep focused on what's going on in this moment, keep trying to get better, and but there's no question, you know, it's a talented football team.
Yeah, you mentioned it being game 1. Do you like the idea that you got more of a leeway? You can lose games like Ryan Day lost the game to Michigan, obviously, but he can lose this game to Texas to start off the season, and it's just not a death sentence the way that it used to be.
Oh, no question. I mean, that's, you know, I lived for 15 years at Youngstown State knowing that, hey, all we needed to do was get into the tournament and be the best team at the end of the year. Well, then I spent 10 years at Ohio State with, like, hey, you know, you not only have to keep improving, but you have to try to keep from dropping a game or two, and that's tough. When you're playing good teams like you play, so I think if the focus remains on getting better every day, we certainly have the talent that if we progress better than everyone else, of being right there at the end of the year. And Julian Sand won't be young at the end of the year, but he's going to be young now, and so he'll progress and along with some of those other young guys, and it's going to be fun to watch him.
Ohio State legend Jim Trestle on the fan hotline here as we get you ready for Ohio State, Texas. There's still more to get there with the game and with the hoopla surrounding not just Julian Sand but Arch Manning as well. But we finally have a conclusion on the Michigan sign-stealing situation, something that I think people drew a lot of corollaries between that and how Michigan was treated versus how your situation ended up with Ohio State with what has been described as Tattoo Gate. When you were watching all this come out over the last year or so, were you watching the Michigan sign-stealing situation with the way you were treated in mind and how things ended up at Ohio State?
No, not at all. In fact, I remember talking with Ryan at times, about it, and we were having those conversations that you can't let yourself get distracted. What you're doing now is what you're doing now, and if you let your mind wander back to yesteryear and you're not focused on what you have to do better today or whatever, I've got a big job what I'm doing today. I don't really spend much time thinking about 15 years ago or anything. So I think the healthiest thing to do is to focus on yourself and not let other things distract you. And what other people do, that's their business. But you can't let anyone distract you from what you need to be focused on.
But did the NCAA get it right? Did the punishment meet the crime?
Oh gosh, you know what? I didn't even spend the time to read what their deal was. I've been worried about all of a sudden when you're the lieutenant governor, I realized at every turn there's something different, whether it's energy policy or education or roads or foster care or safety or you name it. I have a hard time keeping up on studying what I need to be studying, let alone, reading articles about, things like that. So I really couldn't answer that question.
Jim Trestle on the fan hotline here. Coach, looking back to Ohio State, Texas, who do you think has the edge in this game?
Well, I like the fact that we're at home. I think it's two similar teams in that, both young quarterbacks who will have high expectations, and, both, missing some great people from their rosters from a year ago. So, how will the leadership take over? I think when you're in these early season hyped up games, and you're young, it's a little easier when you're doing it at home rather than also having to figure out, okay, how do you play on the road? How do you deal with the opposing, noise and all the rest? And so I like where we are right now with this team. I like the fact that we're playing at home. I think it'll be a little bit of advantage, but it's going to be a good football game. And like I used to always tell my staff, no matter what happens in the game on Saturday, I'll see you back here at noon on Sunday to grade the film and figure out how we got to get better. And so I think it'll be a fun one.
Arch Manning, is the hype warranted with him? It seems like, he's already got pretty high Heisman odds. We've only seen him throw like 95 passes. When you watch him play, do you feel like, I get what everyone's talking about?
I haven't seen much of him. I did see some highlights last year when he got in the game. One thing that I thought was a little bit kind of caught me off guard was his mobility, because, I didn't necessarily ever look at Peyton and Eli as guys that were a threat with their feet. They're extraordinary game managers, unbelievable football IQ, great decision makers. But I didn't necessarily think they had that kind of athleticism. So he seems to me to be a very athletic kid. Now, how far along he is, in the craft of playing, the game of quarterback, we'll see. But I haven't seen enough of him. I don't think anyone has seen enough of him to, make too many prognostications. But he's going to get thrown in there against the Silver Bullets, and we'll find out real quick just, where he is in his development.
Coach, there was so much pressure, so much expectation, and you had the Michigan stuff, and you had winning a national championship. That going into last year, I really struggled to think of a time where an Ohio State head coach had that kind of spotlight and pressure on him, not just in Columbus and Ohio, but nationally as well. Does Ryan Day's job get any easier after winning a national title?
It really doesn't. Because pressure is really what you put on yourself and, your expectations you have on yourself. And Ryan is a guy that, he feels so strongly about what he wants to deliver for his team and for Ohio State and for the state of Ohio. And he's just a competitive guy. It's really important to him to do the best he can. And so, unfortunately, after you win the national championship, the next day, all you're thinking about is recruiting. And then everyone wants to talk about, are you going to repeat? And you're, trying to stay focused on, we got to get better here in spring practice before we talk about any of those things. So I thought he did a masterful job of handling the ups and downs. He knew they were, going to have high expectations last year, and yet he also knew he had a difficult schedule. And, there were some times there where they were banged up on the offensive line and so forth. But what was beautiful about watching what they did was they kept it, real, and they realized that they had opportunities after adversities, and they got healthy, and they, obviously, rolled through that 4-game playoff, playing the best football they'd played all year. And, you got to tip your cap to it. But, no, it doesn't get any easier.
Which one helps more, winning a national title or just beating Michigan?
Oh, gosh. Really neither, because they expect you to do both of those the next year. So, it really doesn't matter.
Coach, we have had some wild rumors, reports, innuendos bandied about the future of the college football playoffs. One report that they could try as many as 24, 28 teams, eliminate conference championships, which brings me to this question. Have we reached a point where, given the division of how everything's going and the changes in the NCAA, does college football, is it in need of a college football czar?
Well, I think it's certainly in need of good leadership and good thought. I worry a little bit about the length of season. I suppose I would want conversations to occur such as, do we need quite that many regular season games? Do we really need a conference playoff? Would it be more fun to have a few more teams in the playoffs? I think you need to get into all those conversations, and it takes leadership, and it takes compromise, and it takes deciding what it is your goals and your outcomes are, so we're in a constant moment of change right now. It's changed dramatically. When they deregulated football on television in 1983, the world started changing, and it hasn't stopped changing.
Yeah.
And so I think you've got to keep working on it, keep thinking about it, keep talking about it, keeping the kids' needs in mind and their health and all the rest. But leadership is always key.
Yeah, I mean, you can make an argument that they've made like 40 years of changes in the past 4 or 5 years, though. Like, have they almost gone too far? And I like NIL, I do, but the idea that these players can transfer 4 or 5 times, like, it does seem like a lot.
Yeah, I think hindsight's easy, but for 40 years, I'm not sure we made great decisions when we saw the changes in the revenue and all of the things that were evolving, and so all of a sudden it appears that the change was kind of like forced. All of a sudden when they lost in court and the thing kind of exploded, hindsight is maybe we should have been changing throughout the last 4 or 5 decades. But it is what it is. We are where we are, and so we've got to figure out, how we can tweak things and make it. The beauty of it is this: it's never been more popular, There's so many people interested in their alma maters and their teams and all that. And is it a perfect system now? No. What can we do? Well, it's pretty complicated, but we do have to figure that out. But you're right. We should have been changing incrementally for a long time, and then boom, all of a sudden, it kind of exploded, and we're left with this, and we got to figure this out.
Jim Trestle on the Fan Hotline here, breaking down the Buckeyes, state of college football. We've teased talking about Jeremiah Smith going into his sophomore season here. You've been connected with the Ohio State program for such a good amount of time. I think you're uniquely qualified to answer this question. Is there a player in Ohio State history or maybe even in college football history that Jeremiah reminds you of at this point in his career?
That's a hard one, but I will tell you this. A year ago spring, I was standing at spring practice with Coach Day, and we were talking, and I was watching this youngster that had just arrived. And I said, Ryan, you might think I'm crazy, but I'm not sure you're going to miss Marvin Harrison as much as everyone thinks you are. Marvin was unbelievable. He was a great player, but, man, this guy looks good. And Ryan said, yeah, and what's great about him is his work ethic and all the rest. So he's a special one. I mean, I'm not sure I've seen anyone certainly any better than he is. We used to always say that the hallmark of excellence and the test of greatness is consistency. And so if he plays like he has and then keeps improving, you may have a hard argument, saying that anyone ever played that position at Ohio State or maybe in college football as well as he has. But he's got to keep growing, and he will the way he works.
Coach, I do got to ask you about Shedeur Sanders because we talk a lot of Browns on this station, and I'm dying to find out what would you do in this situation from a coaching standpoint where he looked so good a couple weeks ago, and then he comes out in the game on Saturday and it just wasn't his best effort, and he looked like basically a shell of himself.
Well, I guess people get tired of coaches talking about the importance of practice, but he missed a lot of practice as far as I know. He got banged up there and missed, 4 or 5 days of preseason. And when you miss preseason practice, really difficult to keep your level of play and your sharpness and your progression gets slowed down. And so, I think we used to always say, don't evaluate people after they've been injured, because it takes a little bit of time to get back to where you were and then start progressing again. So he's young. And, they're just, once you get into these game weeks, there aren't as many reps for the young guys. And so the key, I think, in his case, or, Dylan Gabriel or whoever else they have, playing behind Joe Flacco, is how well will they improve with less reps? And that will be the key for Shedeur. That'll be the key for, your backup lineman or your backup corner. So you're entering a different time now of improvement, because preseason you're getting rep after rep after rep after rep. Well, when you miss time in preseason, that's really impactful. And so I think that kind of explains, that I didn't see the game, but that, he may not have appeared as sharp.
All right, Coach, we started the show by talking about Team Tressel fitness challenge that was launched today. Can you walk us through a couple of the details here so people can find out more about this?
Yeah, it was fun. We were over at the Orchard Steam School to kick it off in Cleveland Metropolitan School District, and we put out a challenge. The governor has a goal for every Ohioan to be safe, every Ohioan to be healthy, and every Ohioan to reach their God-given potential. And one of the things he asked us to work on is the health and fitness of our youth. So we got together and put our heads together, and Teddy Ginn Jr. is our challenge captain, and we got a bunch of our old players and female athletes to film demos of fitness things, and we created our YouTube channel, and we printed out 160,000 workbooks for the kids that signed up. And so this week we're kind of going out and launching it, if you will, and we're trying to get kids to spend time on cardio and strength and flexibility and balance and nutrition and sleep, and get into some habits by taking the challenge, filling out the workbook. We have 3 levels: bronze, silver, and gold medals that they can try to seek to set their own goals, all the way from kids who are disabled or in wheelchairs and adapted programs, all the way to the kid that wants to be like Teddy Ginn. We're trying to meet them where they are, help them get better, help them get in the habit, maybe go home and work on it with their families as well and their siblings. And they're going to be a better student, a better person, better friend, son or daughter, if they feel better and are healthier. And so we're having a lot of fun. We're doing 9 cities in 3.5 days, going out and banging the drum. And we appreciate you guys letting us talk about it a little bit, because we'll be a better state if we're a healthier state.
Well, we appreciate you giving us the time here. For more information, by the way, guys, visit education.ohio.gov/Team Tressel. Coach, it's always great to talk with you. You're always so gracious with your time and your patience and your answers. Truly appreciate it. Thank you so much, and best of luck with the program.
All right, go Bucks.
Go Bucks. Jim Trestle there on the fan hotline.